Hi everyone, Alexandra Joe at Jupiter Returns here with your weekly astrology forecast for the week of April the 26th to the 3rd of May 2021. I hope you're all well. Welcome to my existing followers. Welcome if you're new. I just wanted to start today with just a slight moment of recognition of why we watch these videos. What is it that astrology can do for us? Because there's not much point in watching all of this. It's kind of interesting, but if it's not really got much of a purpose, or we don't really understand what that purpose is, then it's kind of, its value is diminished somewhat. So my call sign, I call myself Astrology Empowerment. It's off the bottom of the screen here, but you'll know if you're a Facebook follower or on Twitter. Astrology Empowerment is what I call myself. And the reason for that is that it's a type of knowledge. It's a type of understanding that's, whilst it can't completely change a process that we are destined to go through, it can give us a greater ability to have an impact upon that. It can facilitate us to have a little bit more say in matters. One of the fundamental things that we need to understand with astrology is that we are all of the signs. We're all of the signs, we're all of the planet. This is you. All of this is you. You aren't just a Taurus or a Sagittarius or what have you. And when you really go deep into astrology, you understand how getting yourself to work together from all of these different perspectives and parts and habits and influences, that's really where you can absolutely supercharge your progress, your self-growth. And if you're here, if you're watching this, then I know you are on a journey of growth. Otherwise you wouldn't be. You wouldn't be interested in these things. So just understanding that there are so many potentialities encapsulated within each of the signs and with each of the planets. And as you get to understand the spectrum of what we can tap into, then you can understand much better how you can pull through, how you can align with, and how you can channel the potentialities on offer that are more desirable. And that's obviously massively helpful. Possibly, I would say, the most important tool in the journey of self-growth and self-awareness and healing, which is essentially what this is all about. So always try and approach astrology from that point of view of whatever I'm talking about, it's absolutely relevant to you because you're all signs and you're all planets, okay? This week we are moving into, as I'm sure you may already be aware, we're moving into a really intense and powerful moment in time. And taking that idea of a range of potentialities, we can approach that with trepidation, we can approach that with fear, or we can approach that with, well, okay, something big's going to happen. And if that big thing is something we really want or we really need, then how could that ever be a, quote, bad thing? So I just want to kind of start the week off like that, because I'm picking up from the astrological community that I'm part of quite a lot of is it ominence? Just kind of this idea, this vibration of a bit of doom and gloom, which certainly is one of the aspects that can come out of Scorpio and Pluto energy, but is absolutely doing a disservice to that if that's all we see it as. So hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on some of those aspects, but try and look at this, both astrology and this week, essentially as a birthing process. Birth is rebirth. Scorpio, the sign of death and rebirth. When we are born, when we come into this physical incarnation and we take on our bodies as we do in Taurus, this is the axis we're dealing with right now, Taurus and Scorpio. we are almost certainly being reborn. We've almost certainly already, our soul has already been something before. We may not necessarily remember that, but we have all gone through that rebirth process as we came into this life. Now, there's absolutely no getting away from that. It has to happen. Pluto matters are absolutely, there's no avoiding them, okay? It's got to happen. But there's different ways that we can approach it and different ways that we can engage with it. Think about a pregnant woman as she's preparing for the birth process. You know, that birth process is going to involve pain. Okay, there's no getting away from that. It's going to involve primal, raw experiences that potentially could feel shocking and traumatizing potentially. But birth, you know, it could be, you know, an awful, unpleasant experience where I think about childbirth in years gone by, women have, you know, died in the process. It can go from that to the most beautiful experience, the most gentle, tranquil, loving, gentle water birth. You know, imagine the most serene and perfect and carefully considered birth process, and then there's everything in between. So understanding the astrology of this week, I'm hoping that I can take it from being that, oh my God, you know, Russia down to have a cesarean and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, to, okay, let's go through this in a really beautiful and loving way, because it's going to happen. So let's, you know, try and bring it about with some grace and some love and some acceptance. So that's essentially my approach for this week. So let's get into it right now. Monday, the 26th, then. So now we are, one of the things that you might hear about this full moon that's coming up is shocks and surprises. And that's because we have Uranus involved, okay? Uranus is this energy of lightning. It strikes seemingly out of the blue and it's very sudden. So when Uranus is involved in any aspect in our lives, it tends to just be very quick, very like, whoa, what just happened there? That kind of a feeling. Now, one of the ways that I think this could surprise us is actually that for many people, this full moon, the energy of Pluto, all these things that are happening right now might actually feel quite good in a really weird kind of way. Particularly if you're the sort of person who has a lot of Scorpio and Pluto energy in their chart, you're familiar with the intensity of feelings that we can have. This could kind of feel like home a little bit to you. It can feel like something, you know, that you embrace almost. And that's particularly going to be throughout Monday, throughout today. And the reason for that is that we've got this beautiful, very, very beautiful grand trine that's taking place. All right. As we approach this full moon, this is a grand trine, so essentially it means that the planets involved here can just flow really easily. They just pick up on each other's thing really easily, and they kind of like move it around. So what do we have here? We have the moon as she's approaching the full moon coming out of a Venus-related sign. She's coming to the end degrees of Libra. Libra is about balance. Libra is about harmony. Libra is about an opportunity to bring things back into alignment where it's been a bit heavy on one side or the other. Okay, it's compromise, and my goodness, we're going to need to get to grips with compromise. That's in harmony with Jupiter. Jupiter, I mean, this is wonderful. This is opportunity. This speaks very, very powerfully to seeing where there is an opportunity within a crisis, where does that open up something that wasn't there before, that can lead to a higher wisdom, a higher growth, a higher perspective on things, and ultimately moving into a wiser connection with life. And then on the other point here of the grand trine, we have Mars. Mars is I. It's me. It's who I am. Where am I going? My motivation, my passion, my juice, my forward direction. Now, Mars isn't super happy in Cancer. We get that, completely understand it. But this is really going to help kind of offset some of the detriment that it experiences in that sign. And it's just going to say, yeah, let me align my my decisions, my way forward, my progress, my alignment with my future, with my intuition, with my feelings, and my ability to receive. You know, the moon is yin, it's the feminine principle, and she is the vessel. She is receiving the light of the sun and reflecting it back to us. That's her job. Her job is to be this this dish that collects in what's being shone into it. And so this is our receptivity. This is what we take in. So let us align ourselves in that sense with the way forward. And then, of course, Jupiter, that's hope. It's optimism. It's seeing the best. It's looking towards the future and just knowing that we're going to be better people. And that what we have coming, particularly if we engage with this process that we're going to go through this week, what we have for us is just beyond abundance. It's greater abundance than we could have ever imagined for ourselves. Okay, so there's a lot on offer. And so as we're moving through Monday, you might be feeling that bit more than the building full moon, but they're both going on. You know, they're both going on simultaneously. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, what you're pulling through. Try, if you can, to engage with this part of it, because that's going to it's just going to open you up. And I think that because we're having a full moon in fixed signs, we need to just try a little bit more than we would ordinarily, just to drop the boundaries ever so slightly. The fixed signs don't really want to change, and this full moon is all about change. So if we can approach it with this optimistic, positive, forward-thinking attitude, then I think that's really going to help us. So, yeah, so we've got that lovely pattern that's building all throughout the day. Moon trine Jupiter is exact about 2 p.m. So as I'm recording this, and then she's applying to Mars. That's going to perfect, the trine down to Mars will perfect around 7 p.m. And that's when the moon will ingress into Scorpio, and so make that connection. So it's early evening that we're more likely to start to feel the more, you know, the shadow sides, that the more scorpionic Pluto intensity. But I love that trine to Mars, the ruler of this, the traditional ruler of this lunation, is there right from the word go. To me, the lunation is happening right from the moment the moon enters the sign that the lunation is going to take place, and it doesn't really finish, you know, until the moon has left that sign, and then it's an ongoing process. You know, any one of my clients who are watching this, who do the Moondala readings with me each month, you'll know it's just ongoing. The cycle is ongoing. So but yeah, soon as the moon ingresses Scorpio this evening, that's when we'll start to really feel some of the tension that's inherent within this full moon starting to build. So let's talk about this full moon then. It's an opposition, or as all full moons are. It's the opposition of the moon and the sun. And an opposition is a confrontation, essentially. And this is a confrontation of the hidden parts of ourselves. Scorpio is where we can, close things off, shut things off, and make them unseen for whatever reason. Perhaps because they feel too dangerous, or they feel too risky, or they make us feel in some way too exposed. Okay, it's too much in danger. Because there's a huge amount of power inherent in Scorpio. This is the energy that can create that birth and death cycle. It doesn't get more powerful than that. And power can be scary. And I think it's particularly scary in this day and age when I think, we don't have much personal power. We've given a lot of our power away. And we've done that for certain reasons, that this full moon may reflect back to you through this confrontation point, may reflect back to you where we have chosen to give away some of our power, some of our intensity, some of our magic, some of our passion, okay, for the safety, really, the security, the comfort of the mundane that we can have in Taurus. So it's fixed signs. We're dealing with fixed signs. And one of the words that always springs to mind for me with the fixed signs is tolerance. Now, this is a really, really key word also within the square aspect that we have going on between Uranus and Saturn right now, which this full moon is absolutely going to flare up, because it's going to create, if I can find another square, it's going to create a T-square. All right. So this is where all this frustration and tension and agitation is building up. So tolerance, and the polar opposite of that, intolerance, is taking on a very polarized expression. Pluto, the energy of Pluto, ruler of Scorpio, intensifies things, magnifies things. So we can be on one extreme or the other in this scenario. So that could be, we have an intense intolerance for something. And it can also show us where we've been over tolerant, when we've tolerated abuse. And this is what happens over time. The slow process, like that old analogy of how you boil a frog. You turn up the heat really, really slowly, and it's gently developing tolerance. Okay, it doesn't realize what's happening, because it's happening so slowly and gently. It's happening comfortably, and comfort very much is Taurus. We get comfortable with the things that we're tolerating, and that makes them that bit harder to shift. Yeah, it becomes a comfort zone. It becomes a feeling of safety, of security. These are all of the Taurus issues. So essentially, what we do on this axis between Scorpio and Taurus is, it's a trade-off. We're kind of we're trading passion for peace. All right, the peace of knowing everything's calm and everything's just so, and everything's predictable. But that's kind of boring, right? It can get a bit boring and a bit old and a bit stale, because there's no passion, there's no oomph, there's no, like, what's the point? If you're just tired, just going through the motions every day and it's same old, like, that's a bit of a waste of all this magic that you have within you. But on the flip side, if it's all crazy and intense and drama and excitement, it's not sustainable. And that's what Taurus deals with. Taurus is saying, okay, you do have a body to look after, and there's only so much, crazy that your body can help you withstand. So we are confronting where we are on the tolerance spectrum. And the square to Saturn is really going to be asking us to do our work there, to get things into balance and proportion. Okay, the midpoint. Saturn is at the midpoint of these two. And so that's saying, okay, it's through Saturn that we can find the middle ground, because we don't want to be constantly on this extreme seesaw from one to the other. And this is what I see going on in life around me right now. All in or all out, nothing in between, no gray areas. And Saturn's really saying, the mature, sensible, respectful, and healthy kind of way is the middle ground. Okay, so we can access that through the maturity and ownership that Saturn sort of brings to us. So yeah, I've written here that in Taurus we can indulge. Taurus does love to indulge, but it can indulge just a little too far in those comforting safety behaviors and patterns that really kind of almost dull down the magic and passion of life. We're also trading off certainty, the predictable, reliable earth certainty, for the infinite possibility of Scorpio. Now that infinite possibility, that to a lot of people is really scary. Like, they don't want to think about what I'm here for, what happened before I came here, what happens afterwards, how my vibration as this particular incarnation is affecting intimately the rest of life, and whatever extremes that goes to. This is intimacy, is Scorpio. And that can be really, really scary. So we can hide from that. We can hide from our passion and our magic, because it's safe. It's safer to just be very simple. Taurus, where Taurus is in our charts, where we just like things to be simple. Whereas with Scorpio, if you know anyone with a lot of Scorpio in their chart, it's complex, it's deep, right? So yeah, we're trying to find this balance, and the balance ultimately is saying, can we feel safe and secure enough within ourselves to be able to access everything that's available to us when we dip into this energy? So that is turning that fear into excitement, as far as I can see. And if we're forewarned and we're prepared, which is what astrology is all about, is preparing you to say, okay, how am I going to meet this influence that's moving into my world? What are the range of options that I can choose? We can expect to feel potentially very agitated, very frustrated, because these square aspects are creating a lot of friction within. And that friction is saying we need to have our attention drawn to where we are between these two polarities. It really is time, if we're going to move forward, Uranus, if we're going to progress, if our consciousness is going to become all that it can be, we have to do some work. And these signs, they don't want to. They want to resist. They want to resist the change. And I'm telling you, Taurus really is the gilded cage. That resistance is very beautiful. It's the resistance of the most comfy place on the most comfy sofa with the best snacks and the sweetest music and a lovely glass of wine and someone massaging your feet. It's like saying, no, I'm going to get up from that and I'm going to go to work now. It's like, but you have to go to work. We have to do our work. We didn't just come into this incarnation to have a lovely time. Sorry to burst the bubble. It's not just about that. Yes, that's involved in this, but it doesn't come from nothing. We get what we earn, and very much with Taurus energy, this is where we earn our living, where we earn the life that we are creating. So yeah, it's the gilded cage of, well, yes, this is really comfortable and really safe, but ultimately it's not going anywhere. It's not doing very much. And you know what? You could actually just get pressure sores from just sitting on your butt too long on that comfy sofa. So this is going to shift you. It's going to make you move and get up. But you'll be really glad you did. You really, really, really will be. And I'm going to introduce you through this week and next week as to all of the ways that you're going to benefit from engaging in doing that work. So what else do I need to say? Yeah, we need both. We need both of these aspects in our life. So we're trying to find a compromise. So as the moon, moves into that trine, as we're building into this energy, that's just keeping that fresh within us, that energy of compromise and balance and harmony. We are, Uranus is, Uranus is really strong in this. Uranus is conjunct the sun. So the moon is going to be receiving a big fat dose of Uranus as well. And this is awakening. This is sudden, crashing into our consciousness of something entirely new. And that's kind of like, whoa, that can be very disturbing, particularly where things have been just so, for a certain amount of time, where things have just been certain, and then something new just bursts in on the scene, and it's like, oh, okay, that's one apple cart that's upset there a bit. But if we can try and be open to accepting something new in there, that's really going to help. Because this is really going to give us a lot of clues. This is going to awaken us, and potentially quite abruptly, yes, to where we are on the spectrum of tolerance, what we tolerate, what we don't tolerate, and how near the polarity, the extremes are we, and what we need to do now in order to make the change that's really crying out to be made, in particularly wherever Taurus is in your chart. This is where change is trying to take place. Okay, so Uranus is going to kind of pierce the bubble of your reality. This reality, this gilded cage that you're currently residing in. And yeah, that's going to potentially be surprising, but ultimately it is good. Okay, ultimately. The square to Saturn really is asking us to own that and to get comfortable with being with discomfort. Okay, this is the thing. In Taurus, we try and kind of shield ourselves from any discomfort, any of the ugliness of life, any of the, anything that, what's that word my parents used to use when I was young, was uncouth. I'm not sure what couth is. But Scorpio is uncouth. It's, the things we don't talk about. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about going to the toilet. We don't talk about ladies' things. We don't talk about death. We don't talk about decay. We don't talk about aging. The decomposition of the body, the process that it's going through for more than half of our natural life, if we're lucky enough to live a long time. We're going to be decaying pretty much from our 30s. And yet we hide from this. We hide from the fact that we are going through a constant process of being broken apart and put back together in a different way. And there's an ugliness, or we consider that there's an ugliness to that. We've got to own it, and we've got to get comfortable, and we've got to get real about this stuff. You know, this is kind of like, you know, it's like the cosmetic surgery, isn't it? It's like saying, I cannot accept that I'm aging. I can't see the beauty in that, so I'm going to resist it and resist it. And I'm going to throw all my resources at that, my self-esteem, my money. You know, I'm going to, I don't know, fly off to India and have a nose job or whatever it might be, you know. You know, putting this big investment, Taurus and Scorpio, this is the financial aspect. You know, I'm going to invest in this this inability to be okay with decay, with uncomfortable things, because it's all relative, it's all relevant, sorry, it's all part of who we are. We need to understand that we can't reject and push away and separate from parts of ourselves if we're ever going to grow. You know, isolating these fixed signs, but particularly Scorpio, can be a very isolating kind of energy that just literally just wants to go away and hide in a cave. It's like, I don't want to be seen. I feel too exposed. I feel too vulnerable. And that's because there's a judgment around what is being seen. And that judgment is a lack of worth. It's the opposite to Taurus. Taurus is where we develop self-esteem. So this is the challenge to our self-esteem. This is the challenge that says, well, yeah, as long as everything's pretty and sweet and Venusian, then I can be loved. Oh, but I can't be loved if I'm on the loo. You know, I can't be loved if I'm dying, or if I'm sick, or if, you know, whatever, you know, all of these things that we reject within ourselves, all of these things that we see as being bad and damaged and defective and wrong, and a horror, you know, the horror of all that we are. Yeah. So it's really, really powerful stuff. And of course, Pluto, so we've got two rulers of the full moon. The first one is Mars, and helpful aspects going on to Mars, the trine, and also Pluto. Now, Pluto is more the modern day ruler of Scorpio. And Pluto is stationing to go retrograde throughout this full moon as well. And that means basically the energy of Pluto is going to be very, very strong. So approach it like this birth process. You know, you can think, oh my God, birth means cesarean horror show, or, you know, Victorian lying in a bed in a bloodbath. Or it can be, you know, the tranquil, beautiful Earth Mama water bath. All right. Expect there to be this dissonance. These square aspects will create this dissonance between the old and the new that's trying to come in. It's a jarring, it's you know, a shock to the system, and in a very embodied way, in a very physical way. So you could actually very much feel this quite literally in terms of different symptoms within your body. Also, I suspect particularly Taurus rules the neck and shoulders, so that tension where we go like this when we're really stressed, you know, there can be a lot of that going on, so just watch out for that kind of thing as well. Okay, so expect a deep inner dissonance as that which becomes fully conscious, Uranus, exposes you to a sense of vulnerability on a survival level, okay? And really be compassionate towards that part of yourself. I mean, this really is, this axis, Taurus Scorpio, is the existential, you know, I have to be safe. You know, I have to be safe in order to survive. It's survival stuff. So be really, really compassionate with the part of yourself that is trying to change against feeling extremely terrified of doing that, all right, of confronting the shadows and monsters that stand in the way of doing that, because that's essentially what we're being asked to do now. Venus is still conjunct Mercury. So we were going through this over the weekend. And they're basically going to ask you to give that loving attention. Venus, Mercury, give loving thoughts and a loving approach towards these parts of yourself that are going through this birth or rebirth process. Like, the last thing you're going to do to a woman giving birth is shout at her or be mean to her or freak out in front of her, or, you know, any of this stuff. And we have to treat ourselves like that woman giving birth. She needs support. She needs you to be okay with being present with her, no matter what kind of blood and mess, whatever it is that you're going to see. You need to support yourself. You need to love yourself and give loving encouragement to yourself in this process, and really appreciate every ounce of strength that it's taking to move yourself through this deep, powerful change. Understand, you know, what a big deal that is. It really, really is a big deal, especially right now if you're going through a Pluto transit, and this will become more relevant as we go through. If you're going through a Pluto transit right now, it's massive. It doesn't get any bigger than that. So it's time to give yourself some credit, okay? Use Venus and Mercury working together to keep your love in mind in terms of how you approach this situation. Get your heart and mind working together. So this full moon process will continue overnight into Tuesday the 27th, okay? And what's going to happen in rapid kind of succession, because we have all of these planets in Taurus, this stellium, okay, as we move through Tuesday the 27th, the opposition aspect that's created by the moon, so that full moon at 7 degrees, quite near the beginning of Scorpio, that as she moves through Scorpio, the opposition will then be made with Uranus. So that's going to be 10 a.m. So that can really be that bursting point into your consciousness of what needs to change as you process the energies of the full moon that you've gone through over Monday. It then very, very rapidly goes on to exactly square Saturn, and that could feel very much like a burden, like a heavy weight that's just saying, yeah, you've got to do a bit of work here, and it's perhaps not going to feel as we would like to feel. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but it's asking us to see if we could just get comfortable with being uncomfortable, if we can just remove ourselves from the feelings that are moving through us. The moon here in Scorpio is powerful feelings that are moving through us. If with Saturn, we can just learn to be a little bit more objective in how we approach those powerful feelings and say, okay, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to hold space for this difficult feeling, okay, from a slightly detached observation point of view. That's it's kind of a discipline. Saturn's always discipline, but it's a really, really helpful discipline in terms of dealing with difficult feelings, of just saying, okay, I'm not going to be shocked by this. I'm not going to be thrown off by this. I can be with this. It's okay. I see it as a part of me, and I see it as something that I need to engage with if I'm ever going to create peace and harmony. You know, when you think of like countries that are at war with each other, they have to go through peace talks, and that's the Venus Mercury stuff that we've got going on now. It's our peace talks, and that means sitting down with the enemy, sitting down with the things that just trigger this disgust in you. This, you know, absolutely, I could never tolerate this, and say, okay, but I need to be with it if I'm actually going to help it, if I'm ever going to improve it. And that's what Scorpio ultimately wants. And the improvements that we make with Aquarius, you know, this is the foundation that's being laid for the Pluto ingress into Aquarius in a couple of years' time. The work that we're doing with Saturn over this next year or two really is laying a powerful, important foundation. So try and work with it, okay? Try and engage with this Saturn. Moving on then through the day, so that's about 1 o'clock when that peaks, and then swiftly then we move into the opposition to Venus. Moon will oppose Venus. Again, that's going to speak to our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-esteem. It's going to be highlighting to us where we are on the spectrum of self-love and you know, disgust, where we need to hide, where we feel ashamed. That's around about 5 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock in the evening, then it's the opposition through to Mercury. So it's kind of relentless. Tuesday really is just as much about the full moon as Monday is, essentially. It's, you know, it's just one by one, making us work with this whole stellium that's in Taurus. So yeah, you're going to be really feeling it powerfully. What's happening in the background, though, as this is going on? Bear with me just a second. What have I done with what I need? Oh, there it is. What's going on in the background? Whilst the moon is squaring Saturn and making all of these oppositions over here, the moon is creeping forward through Scorpio. So what we're going to get then is this wonderful trine aspect that's building up to Neptune over there in fellow water sign Pisces. This is kind of this is really softening things, and it's really encouraging us to forgive. Okay, so Neptune is unconditional love. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And so the connection here is facilitating a real ease between how we're feeling, right in our core, right in the depths, right in the shadows of ourself. And it's allowing Neptune energy to pour into those areas, into those cracks. If we've just allowed just the tiniest little crack to appear with this full moon, then Neptune energy is just going to pour in there. And Neptune energy is unconditional love. It's not saying, well, I can love you if you look pretty, and I can love you if you're young, and I can love you if you're rich, and, you know, all of these things. Just saying, I love you as you are. I love all of you and everything that makes you you. And if we can just pull through just a tiny bit of that, it's going to be so beautifully transformative. This really is, it's Neptune, it's the sea, so it's salt water. And so if there's pain going on in this birthing process in Scorpio here, Neptune is just, it's cleansing salt waters that's just going to soothe you know, that woundedness, that pain, that raw, angry kind of cut that potentially has been made here. So I really, really love that that's going on. And I hope that just the awareness of knowing that that's going on, just the fact that you've heard it has changed something already within you. If you've heard these words, something has already changed that already aligns you with the energy of Neptune. But do what you can to call in that Neptune energy, however you do that. Salt baths, perfect time of the month to have a good salt bath, and sort of allow the Neptune energy to show up, you know, by actually engaging your body, Taurus, with a salt bath itself, literally. A loving, soothing, cleansing, purifying energy that's going to help your divinity show through the highest potential, your spiritual self, and that Jesus that is within us all, that says, you know, you're always beautiful. You can't not be beautiful. It doesn't matter. All of this stuff, it just doesn't matter. You are infinite. You are a beautiful, infinite being, and that's what matters. And try to see things that way. So overnight then, Pluto is stationing to go retrograde. So this Pluto energy really, really is super powerful. You'll be feeling it the most if you have Pluto transits in your chart. So what do I mean by that? Well, most profoundly, if you've got personal planets, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Sun or Moon, even at the end degrees or an angle, even at the end degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so any planets that you have from around, let's say about 22 to 28 degrees of Capricorn, or any of the cardinal signs. So that's Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. If you've got planets there, then you will be having a challenging Pluto transit. And this is a turning point in that transit. Pluto has been in shadow for some months now, sort of purging up to the surface the stuff that's going to be needed to be transformed, to be looked at, to be pulled apart and put back together again. And so as Pluto stations, it's just saying to you, okay, this is where we go back over things. This is where we do the real, this is where we get into the nitty gritty, okay? So you're going to be feeling that very, very powerfully within. Embrace it. You know, absolutely embrace it. Approach it like I've said to you, you know, like you would approach it as the, you know, the partner of a woman giving birth, and you're the woman and the partner and the baby. You're all of it, you know, but try and see it in that light. You've got to go through this process. So let's get the most out of it, make it the most beautiful thing. But it's a turning point, a powerful turning point. So yeah, it's 26 degrees of Capricorn, and that's Pluto's going to station all the way back to 24. Very, very slow moving planet. So it's only a couple of degrees, but it's a very, very long, slow, deep transformation that's taking place. One of the things I want to tap you into right now, of course, is that because we have a lot going on in Taurus here, this is an earth sign. So all of the work that you're doing with these planets as they move through Taurus, they're going to build into a trine with Pluto. Okay, so if you're feeling all that, oh, you know, the desperate kind of, I don't want to make light of it. Pluto will bring you to your knees. If you are having a challenging Pluto transit, it can really just absolutely level you in that area of your life. You know, there's no denying it. But with it being an Earth season that we're going through, for the retrograde to be happening now, or the station to be happening now, is really, really supportive, because all of these planets are going to be in positive, easy flow with Pluto as we move through. Okay, so don't be disheartened. It's all good. Okay, the change will come good, but it's got to, yeah, that baby's got to come out. It can't stay in there. You know, it can't stay in there. There's going to be some blood. All right. So, okay, let's move into Wednesday, the 28th. So as we awaken on Wednesday, the 28th, we have the Scorpio moon now applying to quite deep now into Scorpio, into the last degrees of Scorpio. And that means that the moon is in an applying sextile aspect to Pluto, the ruler of this lunation. So the sextile, as always, is saying, you know, if you can meet this process halfway, you can really get some benefit out of this. And this is the willingness to transform. It's the courage. It's just saying, okay, I'm going to do this. The time is now. The time is now. The labor pains are there. There is no holding it in. You know, the time is now. And I'm going to meet this with everything I've got, because ultimately I can see that this is a big part of what I came here to do. You know, this, when we're doing our Pluto work, that's as big and powerful as it gets. That's kind of what we're here to do, to evolve as a being, whatever that being is, whatever your ideas are around that being. And as we move into the sextile, what's going to happen is we have a simultaneous square aspect to Jupiter. Jupiter in Aquarius. So what this is saying is our beliefs, okay, our belief systems are going to need to shift. Okay, something about what we believe, our personal philosophies of life, how that's informing the way that we currently engage with life. Something there needs to shift. And that's not, again, it's a square aspect, so it's not going to feel very comfortable. And it's particularly not going to feel comfortable because Jupiter is in a fixed sign. Okay, Aquarius is one of these signs that kind of want to just resist and detach. And so it's going to be quite, you know, irritating again. And Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and this is where we have the South Node. This is like karma. This is our karmic past. So Jupiter is almost sort of showing up as the embodiment of something that you've already done a lot of, and that yes, that's great, that's wonderful, it stood you in good stead in the past, but now we need to move forward. The adventure needs to continue. All right, and take us into unknown territories. So it's just about saying, I'm going to meet this energy of transformation by just being a little bit more open to new ideas. Okay, to just holding a little bit of space for the idea, or just having a little bit of willingness to shift any beliefs that you currently have that right now feel absolutely right, but perhaps aren't. Okay. It's a case of flexibility. Yeah, just trying to bring in a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of bend. You know, there's an old saying, I can't quite remember what it is, but this square aspect really brings it to mind, where, you know, the strength of a flower or a blade of grass isn't in its, you know, its rigidity. Okay, the strength comes from its flexibility, the ability to bend in the wind is actually almost better than kind of being rigid when the wind blows, because then, you know, like a tree, a small tree, we could just snap in half, or like a fence just get blown over. So it's just saying, you know, let Jupiter rules mutable signs. It rules both Sag and Pisces, which are mutable signs. So it's saying, try and be flexible here. Be like the blade of grass that bends in this prevailing wind of change. And that's going to be helped as we move later on into the day. On Wednesday, 5 p.m. here in the UK is when the moon moves into Sagittarius. That's essentially when this full moon energy starts to chill out just a little bit, because the moon has moved out of Scorpio, and also when the moon is in Sagittarius, we immediately get a little bit of an optimistic and hopeful kind of lift to our mood. Okay. So the work there with Jupiter is going to be calling that in and saying, okay, let's just be optimistic in terms of, you know, a change in my beliefs, a change in my philosophies towards life is going to turn out to be the best thing that I could have ever done. All right. Perhaps even think back to times in the past where you've experienced and noticed a change in your beliefs in yourself, and what that enabled you to then accomplish in your life, what that gave you. See if you can remember anything like that. So then Thursday the 29th, Moon continues her journey through Sagittarius, and of course that's going to activate the opposition then, which is the lunar nodal opposition. Okay, so the lunar nodes are always in opposition. We're constantly being invited to find the middle ground, find the balance point here, between where we're coming from and where we're going to. So the moon is really going to activate this quite strongly. She's still quite big. It's only a couple of days after the full moon, so she's waning. And this part of her cycle is she's moving from, in those first days when she's moving from fullness, it's the waning gibbous moon, and this is the energy of really pulling out the lessons, really pulling out the wisdom that was brought to you, the message, the feedback that you gained from the universe. It's really kind of enabling you to see the teachings within that. And of course, when we're dealing with Sagittarius and Gemini, that's exactly what we're talking about. Sag and Gemini is the education axis. This is where we learn like early life education, and this is kind of the higher education. So Sagittarius rules universities and studies that go beyond into the realms of philosophy and politics and religion, that the higher esoteric kind of topics. So and Gemini deals more with the skills that we can learn, but it's all about our education. So this really tallies in with essentially aligning us with the eclipses that we have coming up, and the shifts that they're going to bring, and you know, this ripening wisdom that's coming into our lives, how that plays its part within you know, how the eclipses are going to be showing up. I've written here that she's essentially distributing, you know, when she's waning, that's when she's giving something away. The light that she's collected over here, she's fully collected the light of the sun and Uranus, and now it's almost like she's distributing what she collected in that area, with all of these planets that she's now going to engage with, and therefore this part of your chart. All right, so this is where it's kind of being distributed. And of course, that's going to tie in with what the eclipses then bring for you. The vibration that she has received from you while she's been in Scorpio, and now kind of being fed into that karmic scene. So yeah, she's distributing what she's received from us. She's going to be, as she moves into this, that she's going to create a sextile aspect to Saturn here. So again, Saturn is also quite a karmic, well, it is a karmic planet. Saturn kind of delivers on the work that you've done. So Saturn asks us to do our work, and if we do our work, he gives us the rewards. If you consider the reaper image, he's got that big sickle. And that represents the harvest. And in actual fact, the Romans celebrated Saturn as the god of harvest. You reap what you sow. All right, this is really, really karmic. So it's going to say, do the work. When we do the work with Saturn, we have lasting, reliable, solid harvest, and we need a harvest. Okay, we need something that's going to sustain us. So yeah, the sextile aspects are really going to be able to tap us into that. And it's also, okay, building into, let me get this right in my head. So we've got the sextile to Saturn. We're also building into the conjunction, the exact conjunction point of the Sun and Uranus. All right, they are building up. And also a sextile aspect between Mercury and Neptune. So this is going to continue that work that we started with Neptune earlier on. You'll be glad now of engaging with Neptune. All right, this is going to help gently to dissolve any existing thought patterns or any existing ways of communicating, any existing ways of organizing things in your life. It's going to dissolve those in a way that facilitates the changes that you need to make now that the full moon has shown you. All of these essentially are working together to awaken Uranus, you, the Sun, to a more limitless and loving you. All right. So this is, as they're applying, this is the real strength part of when an aspect, it's in those final moments really before it becomes perfect. When they're applying that build up, that's like a wave that we want to surf. We want to get on it nice and early. So this is the time to just get on that and open yourself up to all the infinite possibility that exists when you approach yourself with unconditional love. Okay, and that you own your part in your karma, in your fate, because we do play a part in it. It doesn't happen to us. We have varying degrees of influence, and we want to maximize the best possible outcome. And that's what astrology is all about. So the question that I leave you with for Thursday: can you see how change can make life so much better than you have previously imagined? So, any potential resistance or hesitation to change, if you can just look for the ways that you could see that allowing this change to teach you, to inform you, to be open to the lesson, is really going to pull you into something so vast, so huge, so much more beyond the kind of the small ideas that you're currently living by in terms of who you are. This is absolutely such expansive energy, and it's expanding your consciousness with Uranus here. Uranus is like the higher octave of Mercury. Mercury is our brain. It's how we think about things. It's our mind. So Uranus is that higher mind of consciousness, where we're at. You know, there's a lot of people in the world right now floating around claiming to be woke. I really dislike the words. We're always right at the point of awakening that we need to be at. There is no superiority in where you're at on your journey and where someone else is. Everyone is right where they need to be. And this idea that people are wrong, or that they're somehow stupid or foolish or ignorant because they are not in the place of consciousness that you are, or that you perceive yourself to be, which is possibly more likely. You know, we really need to do away with that whole competitive approach to our progress, you know, and the Sun in Uranus could really demonstrate this to us. We need to collaborate. You know, Uranus rules Aquarius, and Aquarius says, yeah, let's celebrate our uniqueness and our differences by bringing them all together and valuing them all equally. Then what we have is we have a tribe of people where we have the best of everything available to us. We have, you know, the person that's been encouraged to progress their skills as a doctor, or as a witch, you know, a medicine man, or as a builder, or as an architect, or as a poet, or as a mystic, or as a just anything and everything. It's like, celebrate what's wonderful and unique about you and the special gifts that you have, without being a dick about it, which a lot of people can be. You know, the Sun can be a bit all like, you know, check me out. This is kind of like saying, well, no, yeah, the world needs you to be great at that, but it also needs everyone else to be great at totally different things. You do you to the best possible ability, but bring that to the table in a way that values it as equal to what everyone else is bringing to the table, and look at the ways of being able to collaborate and bring all that stuff together, because that's when we really move up in terms of global consciousness. That's really how we raise our vibration as a species, as a tribe, as a community, which is what Aquarius is all about. It's not going to take place with, you know, the superiority that's involved in this kind of this idea of wokeness. Okay, Friday the 30th, we have the moon shifting now into Capricorn. Okay, so we're getting into the Saturnian vibes just a little bit again as the moon moves into Capricorn. That sort of in the evening, she will then oppose Mars. Mars is at the very beginning of Cancer. So we've got a situation here where the moon ruler of Cancer is coming in to oppose Mars, who's in the fall position within Cancer. Mars is much happier switching places with the moon and being up there in Capricorn. So this is going to be around that same time that the conjunction of Sun and Uranus goes exact. So that perfect moment. All right. So it's around about, I think it's around about 5 p.m. in the evening. But you'll essentially feel it kind of all throughout the afternoon and throughout the evening as well. So again, this could come as a little bit of a shock, perhaps a shock to the ego even. Something that's kind of essentially going to maybe throw us off guard or catch us off guard. An unavoidable shock. And it could be surrounding kind of a sudden impulsive action. So Mars in Cancer, especially off the back of all of this stuff, with the sun coming together with Uranus, this could be just like, right, boom, that's it. I've hit the point at where I can't tolerate something anymore. This can be, I have to change now. And with Mars in Cancer kind of lending into the scene as I'm going to act on impulse, I'm going to act on my emotions and my feelings. As the moon comes into oppose this as well, moon feeling a bit low because she's in Capricorn. This really speaks to people being impulsive, people taking a very sudden action. So if that's you, if you're feeling that feeling, try and use this as an opportunity to practice being present with it and not, letting it own you. um, you know, be with it and learn to just sit with it for a time and understand it better, because it's probably not ideal that you take this kind of action that really could be quite shocking and disruptive to people around you, to other people. Okay, with the opposition, this really pulls in, the outer world and people that you're connected to. So there could be disruptions there. And equally, where we're dealing with people who aren't aware that they're under these influences, then we can sort of become a victim of shocking impulsive actions that maybe even we didn't see coming, because these bursts of clarity that we get with Sun Uranus, they seem to come from nowhere, especially in people who aren't really engaged in their process of self-awareness and self-growth. And that's a lot of people. So a lot of people are just going to feel very suddenly, oh God, right, do you know what, I've had enough. And they're going to be acting that way. So be prepared for that, because it could potentially be quite destabilizing and quite shocking. Staying a little bit detached, again, pull in that Saturn energy that we were working on earlier in the week. This is, of course, Saturn's sign. And just kind of be prepared and expect that people around us might just kind of work in these very rash and impulsive ways. As we move into the 1st of May, Saturday, the 1st of May, we have now the moon. This is actually where things really, really start to powerfully take shape from the work that we've done with the full moon. Okay, and that's because as the moon continues her journey through, we'll move them around that way, through Capricorn, she's going to now trine everything in Capricorn. So they're going to be speaking to each other really, really easily. And this is manifesting energy. This is energy that creates the 3D. Okay, this is tangible benefits from the work that we're doing. All right. So we've got the moon in sun, trining the sun, both in earth signs. So that's going to help us to feel a little bit more centered, a little bit more grounded and stable. If we've had to go through a bit of a shock and a surprise and an upheaval, then this is going to help bring us back together again and regroup, essentially, so that we can engage with what now needs to happen as we move forward. The moon is waning, so it's really aligning the aspects of ourself that need to take on board that something is ending, something is coming to a close, something is being released, we're moving away from something. And this is where we can kind of really get real about doing that in a more okay way, in a more grounded and centered way. Okay. So throughout the evening, then throughout the night time, the moon will come into trine then with Venus. Venus in obviously home sign of Taurus still, and that's really going to help to integrate the messages of love and worth and self-esteem that we've been working with this full moon. And again, that that may mean letting go of something that's standing in the way of showing up in the world, of quite literally doing this in practical ways, walking the talk of self-love and self-worth and self-value. That's what this stuff is all about. And self-respect, you know, Saturn's all about integrity. Capricorn is all about integrity. So this is saying, okay, it's time to walk the talk now of having self-respect and having your own back in this really loving way. On Sunday, then, this means that we are going to awaken on Sunday to a conjunction of Moon and Pluto. So this is going to dip us back into that Scorpio full moon energy. It's just kind of like dovetailing the week with real kind of Moon Pluto vibes. This birth, rebirth process, you know, the moon being that pregnant woman. And yeah, this is going to be really beautiful because this is going to now move that trine onwards to Mercury. And we've been doing our work with Mercury all the way through, haven't we? So this is really lovely energy. Mercury is kind of getting ready to change signs, and Mercury is the ruler of the North Node at this time because Mercury rules the sign of Gemini. So when we're working with Mercury, as Mercury's kind of straddling these two signs, Taurus and Gemini, and I'm going to talk about this as plant medicine. All right, essentially, that's what Sunday is all about. We're all going to have a dose of ayahuasca. um, Mercury being medicine, being like the healer, being the alchemical process that transforms something from one form and into something better. It was led into gold initially. Um, and this is transforming the medicine that our body has ingested. Taurus, plants, it's Gaia, you know, the food that we've consumed, metaphorically speaking, and how that's then going to filter into the brain, to the consciousness, to our wiring, our circuit boards, okay, to actually make the shifts that need to happen. But there's a purging that needs to take place with this plant medicine. You know, when Moon conjuncts Pluto like this, we're going to purge at the same time as we move into this process of integration. So try and, if you can, to look at what you're feeling on that day in that way. There's a necessary shedding of a toxin, of some kind of a poison. You know, when everything's poison, water will poison you if you drink enough of it. You know, it's just the dosage that we have to get right, and we use the dosage accordingly to the outcome that we want, right? If I want to stay alive and go quench my thirst, then I'll drink 8 glasses of water a day. If I want to kill myself and try and drink about 4 gallons, you know, it's where are we going to be on that spectrum, essentially. But yeah, Pluto's going to say, okay, something's become poisonous, something's accumulated within, that we need to purge something. We need to purge a little bit of it, and release, so that we can go through this movement from the body of what we've taken in and have that filter into the mind, and the circuit board that kind of runs the show. And this is really gorgeous because obviously Mercury being the ruler of our North Node, this is helping us to move into our destiny. This is helping us to engage with the fate that's calling us in. You know, people that are going into ceremony with plant medicine, with sacred plants, it's a whole long process. It's not just that drinking moment. There's a calling. The plant calls to them, or fate calls to them through the plant, using the plant as a tool. And that's what's happening here as Mercury straddles this place between Taurus and Gemini, because we've got the North Node here. This is really taking us into eclipse season, which is only a couple of weeks away. It's on the horizon, these huge universal cosmic shifts that we're going to experience in our lives is really pulling us into that. So again, have a willingness to be able to release. It's kind of like, this is kind of like the placenta. It's saying, okay, yes, you've given birth to something, but there's something else now that needs to be released. We need to just go through another little, challenging crisis point of getting rid of something. Otherwise, if it stays behind, it's going to become infectious and it's going to become toxic. And this is all part of it. The moon is waning. She's shedding, she's releasing, and she's preparing us to move into the new moon energy, which is what's taking place next week. So really, really use this week. Sorry, it's not, it's the week after. But yeah, use this period to work with that and prepare, essentially. Yeah, I think that's everything. I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, as always, give me a like or a share or leave me a comment. I will be away next week, but I am going to record next week's forecast before I go, and I'm still working. So get in touch with me if you need a reading, if you'd like to perhaps start working with the moon cycles, so that you can really, really get the best out of them and understand where these things are showing up in your own chart as well. Have a beautiful, illuminating, awakening, and transformative week of really coming back to your truth of all that you are and loving all of it. Until next week, lots of love. Bye for now.